The morning started just like any other Friday. Light filtered through the kitchen windows in soft slants, warming the tile beneath my feet. I stood at the counter with my second cup of coffee, staring out into the backyard. There was a quietness here that I'd worked hard to protect. After 10 years of designing houses for others, I had finally built one I didn't want to leave. Mine. That peace cracked with the sound of the doorbell. I paused. Few people came unannounced out here. When I opened the door, there she was. Isolde, my older sister. 2 massive suitcases flanked her like bodyguards. She wore that same breezy smile she'd mastered since college, the kind that disarmed people before they realized she'd invited herself in. "Hey, little sis," she said, already stepping inside. "Don't freak out. I just need a place to land for a few days. Ron's dealing with condo nonsense in Portland. Leaky pipes." Total chaos. She was in before I could respond, her wheeled bags rolling behind her like she owned the place. I blinked, one hand still on the door. "You're staying here?" "Just for a few days," she repeated, towing off her designer flats. "You always said this place was too big for one person. Besides, you've got the best Wi-Fi and the coziest guest bed in Oregon." It wasn't the first time she'd turned a compliment into a claim. I followed her down the hallway, watching her assess my living room like it was a hotel suite. I should have said no. I wanted to say no. But the weight of being the good one in the family, the responsible one, held my tongue. My parents always said I was the stable branch. That branch bent a little more as Isolde flopped onto my couch and sighed like she'd just crossed a desert. That night, I double-locked the front door and stood at the gate. Something in me registered it. That vague, shifting boundary between generosity and invasion. By Sunday, she'd rearranged my living room furniture. "I just think the energy flows better this way," she said, dragging the coffee table 2 feet to the left. It was subtle, almost reasonable. That's how she worked. Small claims disguised as suggestions. My framed photos ended up stacked on a side table, replaced by a ceramic bowl of eucalyptus balls she found at a boutique downtown. She started ordering groceries through my account. "You don't mind, right?" she asked while unpacking oat milk and frozen smoothie packs. "You should try this brand," she added. "It's so LA, like, in a good way." I didn't bother reminding her we were in Oregon. I just nodded and excused myself to my room. Later that evening, I called Mom. I didn't ask for intervention, just tried to talk through the unease blooming in my chest. "She's your sister," Mom said lightly. "Let her breathe a little." I didn't have the heart to say it felt like Isolde was inhaling all the air in my home. 2 days after that, I came home early from a site visit. My car barely fit past a maintenance van parked in the driveway. I stepped inside to the scent of lemon cleaner and heard voices in the kitchen. "Ma'am," one of the uniformed men said as I entered, startled. "Ms. Harrington said you were expecting us." I froze. "Excuse me?" "The cleaning crew. Deep cleaning before the move." I stared at him. "What move?" They exchanged glances. "Ms. Harrington gave us the code and key, said everything was approved." My stomach dropped. I walked to the back patio, and there she was, lounging in a chair with her sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She was on the phone, laughing. I waited until she hung up. "Isolde," I said slowly, "did you give strangers access to my house?" She looked at me like I was overreacting. "It's just the cleaner, Sarah. I made a spare key last week and gave them the gate code." I didn't think it'd be a big deal. "You didn't think to ask?" She stood, brushing non-existent dust from her blouse. "You're always so particular. It's not like I hired criminals. It's easier this way. You work a lot. I didn't want to bug you." I didn't respond. Not then. I walked straight to my office, opened the security app, and changed every code, door locks, gates, garage. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing her footsteps above mine. Privacy isn't a luxury in this country. It's a line you draw around your life. She hadn't crossed it. She'd stomped over it in designer boots. By Thursday, the guest room looked like a full-time apartment. A new wardrobe had arrived, unannounced, and now sat in the hallway, unboxed. The dresser from my attic, an antique I'd planned to restore, was already filled with her jewelry and scarves. Over breakfast, she barely looked up from her phone. Ron's parents might come next weekend, just for a few days. They loved the guest bath when I showed them the pics. I looked up slowly. You showed them pictures of my house? She grinned. Of course. I mean, it's kind of their vibe, you know? Earthy, warm. Don't worry, they're super chill. You'll like them. My fingers tightened around the coffee mug. Isolde, She cut me off with a wave. Relax. I didn't confirm anything. Yet. I didn't finish my sentence. I didn't slam the cup down. I didn't cry. But something inside me calcified. That evening, long after the sun dipped behind the pine trees, I opened the drawer in my study. My name was there. On every page, on every initialed clause of the title deed. Still, something itched at the base of my spine. It wasn't just about legal ownership anymore. It was about the erosion of space, of self. She wasn't visiting. She was taking over. It had been 8 days. Not that I was counting, but my kitchen calendar reminded me every time I crossed off another square. What was meant to be a weekend stay had turned into a quiet occupation. My sister was still here, as radiant and unbothered as ever. And now, Ron had made himself comfortable too. His laptop living on the dining table, his shoes at the front door, his voice echoing through Zoom calls in the guest room he now casually referred to as our space. They cooked in my kitchen, rearranged my pantry, even swapped out my herbal teas for their high-caffeine blends. I watched my home shapeshift under their hands. It wasn't a takeover in the traditional sense. It was creep. Like ivy on a brick wall. Slow, quiet, hard to catch until it's everywhere. During dinner that night, turkey meatloaf and some salad Isolde insisted was paleo-inspired, Ron looked up from his phone and said, "We were thinking of hosting Easter brunch here this year. It's perfect for it, don't you think?" My fork stopped midair. He smiled at me like we'd already discussed it, like I had nodded and agreed. I hadn't. You were? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Yeah, he nodded, glancing at Isolde. Your place just has the right vibe, you know? Open, inviting. Feels like family already. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I chewed, swallowed, took a sip of water. Isolde grinned. Don't worry, we'll handle everything. You can just relax. Relax, in my own house, with a guest list I didn't approve of. Later that night, I stood on the patio with a glass of wine and stared into the pine trees. They didn't speak. They didn't rearrange my furniture. I whispered to myself, entitlement doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just smiles while it steals your seat. The next morning started innocently enough, coffee brewing, birdsong through the windows. I sat at the counter flipping through design notes when Isolde waltzed in, already dressed in a linen dress that suggested plans. Ron's parents are coming next weekend, she said, grabbing a mug. They'll take the guest room, obviously. The word landed like a slap. I set down my pen. Excuse me? She took a sip. His parents. They'll be here Friday. I figured you'd want to know. You figured I'd want to know after you decided? She tilted her head. They're in their 70s, Sarah. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Tell them no. You don't want to be that kind of person, do you? That kind of person. The phrase scratched something in me. The kind who sets boundaries, who defends her own space, the kind they label selfish because she doesn't bend. Let me guess, I said. You've already sent them photos of the guest bath. She didn't even blink. It's a beautiful space. They're excited. I opened my laptop without another word. I wasn't sure what I was looking for until I instinctively clicked on the family calendar I used for tracking client projects. There it was. Harrington Family Move-In Prep. Confirmed. Bright red. Tagged to repeat weekly. I stared at the screen for a full minute. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I wasn't asked. I wasn't consulted. I was edited out. I closed the laptop gently, as if slamming it would confirm the disrespect. That afternoon, I called Mom. I needed to hear her voice. Needed someone to acknowledge that this wasn't okay. They're just staying for a little while, she said, her voice soft. Mom, they've been here over a week already. She sighed. It's just space, sweetheart. They have more needs than you do right now. The words sank into my skin like cold rain. More needs. As if my space, my solitude, my ownership were negotiable. They're acting like it's their home, I said, quieter. Their family, she replied. It's not a big deal. It is to me. Isolde walked into the kitchen mid-call and caught the tail end of my sentence. Oh, you called Mom to tattle? She said with a smirk, grabbing her phone charger from the counter. I kept my tone flat. I called her to talk. Something adults do. Isolde raised an eyebrow. Okay, chill. She walked off, still smirking. My mom had gone quiet on the line. I just wanted someone to see what's happening, I said finally. You're being dramatic, she replied. Let them settle in. Be the bigger person. That phrase again, bigger person. Always the one who swallows, bends, accommodates. You can't build boundaries in a family that thinks sharing is sacrifice, especially when they're always the ones taking. Saturday rolled around with more surprise guests. Ron's sister, 2 nieces, and a dog that barked at my ceramic planters. They're just stopping by, Isolde explained, waving a hand. Quick tour. 4 hours later, my living room had been rearranged. Again. One of the nieces had spilled juice on my wool rug. No apology, just laughter and a throw blanket over the stain. I watched them lounge, feet on my coffee table, treating my home like a public venue. She's the free-spirited aunt who doesn't mind open homes, Isolde chirped when someone asked about me. I smiled, tight, bit my lips so hard I tasted metal. I'd become decoration, a convenient footnote, the woman who let it happen. Later, while cleaning up stray cups and plates, I saw Ron's phone buzzing on the counter. Notifications flashed across the screen. A group chat, Villa Life Logistics. I glanced around. The hallway was empty. I tapped the screen to stop the buzzing. The last message was still open. Seraphine will come around. She always folds when family pushes. My chest went still. Cold and still. No, not this time. It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday. I had planned to catch up on drafting notes for a small eco-lodge project in Ben's outskirts. Instead, I walked into my kitchen to find floral centerpieces crowding my dining table, pastel-themed napkins with "She said yes" scrawled in metallic gold, and Isolde giving a toast like she was Martha Stewart reincarnated. "Oh, hey!" she called out mid-speech. "We're doing a surprise brunch for Ron's niece. She just got engaged. You remember Lila, right?" I didn't. "Hope you don't mind. It just kind of came together last minute," she added with a shrug, handing me a mimosa I hadn't asked for. Ron's sister stood nearby, chatting with 2 women in matching sundresses. None of them acknowledged me as the homeowner. Instead, one guest leaned toward me with a warm smile. "It's so sweet of you to let them use your place like this," she said. I returned a polite smile, jaw clenched. My place. I disappeared before dessert hit the table. Locked myself in my room, slid my laptop open, and typed aimlessly to look busy while the sounds of clinking glasses and laughter bounced off my walls. It was like watching a show in a theater that used to be my home. Sunday brought worse. I stepped into the backyard to water my succulents and froze. My garden, the little corner near the fence I'd carefully curated with a mix of native Oregon plants and a small stone marker for Mavis, my golden retriever, was torn up. A wheelbarrow of soil sat beside a half-dug hole, and a landscaper was sipping iced tea under my maple tree. "Morning," he greeted cheerfully. "Mrs. Harrington said to prep the area for a gazebo install. We'll need to remove the old planters." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "The gazebo?" he repeated. "She mentioned it was a gift for her in-laws." "Who approved this?" I asked, voice flat. "She did," he replied, genuinely confused. I turned on my heel and walked inside, wiping my hands on my shirt as I made my way to the living room, where Isolde was lounging with a tablet. "What the hell is going on with my garden?" I asked. "Oh, the gazebo thing?" she said without looking up. "I thought we could modernize the backyard. The old layout felt dated." My fists clenched. "You touched the planter with Mavis's stone." She looked up finally. "I didn't know it meant that much. You never mentioned it." "I didn't think I had to." Isolde set down her tablet and raised both hands. I just wanted the space to feel more welcoming, for everyone. Not everyone lives here, I said quietly. She shrugged. You've always been so attached to things. I didn't reply. I stepped outside, took photos of the disruption, then emailed them to myself with the subject line, Unapproved Landscaping, 3.23.25 Evidence. I wasn't ready to go nuclear, but I was documenting. That evening, needing mental distance, I sat at my desk, intending to schedule a follow-up with a client. As I clicked into the shared calendar, one I only used for work, my eyes caught an unfamiliar entry, Harrington Family Move-In Plan, every Sunday at 10 a.m. My stomach dropped. The invite listed Ron's email, Isolde's, two names I didn't recognize. I opened the event history, created by Isolde, confirmed by all parties. Except me. No note, no heads up, no permission. My house, my villa, was on someone else's plan. When they start planning your home's future without you, I whispered, they've already written you out. I sat there, staring at the event reminder blinking at me. My cursor hovered over the delete option, but I didn't click it. Not yet. I needed to see how far they were willing to go. Monday morning, I brewed coffee and stared at my bookshelf while waiting for the machine to finish. I needed control over something. I walked into the living room and began shifting the furniture back into my original setup. Sofa angled toward the fireplace, not the television. Art back on the walls. Isolde walked in, still in her robe, her wet hair leaving drops on the hardwood. The flow was better the other way, she said, raising an eyebrow. I liked it this way, I replied without turning. Don't you think you're being a bit territorial? I looked at her squarely. Territory implies shared space. This isn't. She tilted her head, lips tightening. You're making this awkward for everyone else. Then maybe everyone else shouldn't have moved in uninvited. She didn't respond, just turned and walked away, her bare feet thudding against the floor louder than they needed to. That night, I lit a candle at my desk and pulled out my journal. My handwriting was shaky, but I needed to get it out. There's a difference between compromise and conquest. I've spent years letting people borrow pieces of me, assuming they'd return them, but now they're building a new life with what they stole. And the worst part? They smile while doing it. I stared at the flickering flame. Then my phone buzzed. New email alert. Subject line, HOA permit update. Primary resident notification. Sender, Ronald Harrington. I opened it, expecting something harmless. Instead, I found a request to update the villa's primary occupant on HOA records. To his name. No phone call, no discussion, just paperwork, assumptions, invasion. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. I hadn't just been written out. They were drafting a new history, with him at the center. 2 days had passed since Ron's name popped up as primary resident in the HOA email. I hadn't mentioned it to either of them. I hadn't replied. I hadn't screamed or slammed any doors. But something inside me, the part that spent years biting its tongue, had snapped quietly. And that's the part you should fear most in people like me. It was a late Thursday morning when I returned from meeting with a contractor. I kicked off my shoes, set my laptop bag on the bench, and headed toward my office to drop off blueprints. I opened the door and froze. The walls, once soft taupe, were now a sickly mint green. My shelves, the ones I'd built from reclaimed barnwood, were gone. The drafting table had vanished, replaced by a small plastic table, 2 beanbags, and a bin full of toddler toys. A stuffed unicorn leaned against a miniature easel where blueprints once lived. My jaw tightened. From behind me, Isolde chirped, "Surprise? We thought we'd get ahead of it." Ron's nieces will be here soon anyway, and this was the only room that made sense. I turned slowly. Who exactly is we? She looked up from her phone. Ron and me, and his sister weighed in. The space was just sitting there. Sitting there? I repeated. She gestured to the bright walls. You barely used this room. Remember? Last Christmas, you said it was collecting dust. That was a passing comment. Still, she shrugged. Sometimes we need someone else to help us make changes we're too sentimental to make ourselves. I didn't respond. I walked past her into what used to be my office. My fingers brushed the side of the unicorn. It was brand new, still had the tag. She walked away, talking into her phone. "She'll adjust," she whispered. "She always does." No, not this time. It wasn't redecorating. It was relocation of me. Later that night, I stood at the sink, scrubbing plates with more force than necessary. The water ran too hot. Isolde sat on the island stool behind me, flipping through a real estate magazine like nothing had happened. "You know," I started, not looking at her, "you didn't run the room change by me." She blinked, all innocence. "I thought you wanted to downsize your workspace. Didn't you say that last winter?" "No," I said flatly. "I said I was considering moving my desk closer to the window." She waved a hand. "Semantics. I'm just trying to help. You've been overwhelmed lately. This whole stripped-down lifestyle thing, it's trending, you know?" I put the dish down. Helping would have looked like a conversation. Ron wandered in, mid-yawn, scratching his neck. "Is this about the office?" "She's upset," Isolde answered for me. "About the room becoming more multifunctional." He poured himself some water. "It's just a room. It's not like we're taking your name off the house." I wiped my hands on a towel. "Not yet." They went quiet. I left the room before I said something sharper. That night, I pulled out the folder again, the deed, the survey papers, the title transfer record with my initials on every page. It was still mine, but it felt less and less like it. This wasn't about square footage. This was about identity. 10 years of commissions, working weekends, managing teams, saving every spare dollar. That house had come from calloused hands and long nights, and now someone else's family was drawing on my walls. I opened my laptop and drafted a short email to my attorney. Subject line, legal clarification. Body, if a guest contributes decor or purchases something for a home, does that give them any legal claim to space or usage rights? No urgency, just checking. I stared at the send button, didn't press it, saved it to drafts instead. Ownership is more than paper. It's the ability to say no without needing permission. The next morning, I made coffee slowly, as if reclaiming small rituals would stabilize the bigger things. Then I started reclaiming my house, one item at a time. I rehung the canvas of my first architectural sketch in the hallway, replaced the guest bathroom soap with my eucalyptus bars, swapped the front doormat back to the one that read, "Private Property." Then I stepped outside and opened the mailbox. The nameplate had been changed, removed entirely, blank. I walked back inside, dug into my drawer, and screwed in a new plate. S. Monroe. Isolde came out of the kitchen, hair pulled into a high bun, coffee in hand. "Feeling a little territorial lately?" she asked with a smirk. I looked her straight in the eye. "Yes, because this territory is mine, and I'm done playing gracious host." Her smile faltered, just a flicker. Ron, who'd just emerged at the top of the stairs, paused. His eyes met mine. He said nothing. Good. By evening, I was sorting laundry when my phone buzzed with a security alert. Login attempt failed. Admin panel. I froze, checked the source. Someone had tried to reset my home security system's administrator account and failed, but they had tried. There's a moment when patience isn't peace, it's erosion, and I had eroded enough. I began keeping receipts, not just financial, but verbal, conversations, comments, every look and move they made that proved I was no longer just hosting. I was being overwritten. While transferring a call recording from a site visit, I accidentally hit play on a file I didn't recognize. It was short, garbled at first. Then I heard her voice. "Don't worry, I've got her softened. She won't push back. Not yet." Isolde. Her voice, clear as day. I played it again, and again. Each time the same sentence, said with the confidence of someone who had gotten away with it all her life. I sat still for a long moment, then unplugged my phone from the cloud sync, saved the file to a private drive, and deleted it from everywhere else. I wasn't passive. I had been patient, and I was done with both. By afternoon, I needed a break from the house. I ran out to the post office, picked up a few letters, grabbed a quick coffee, and started heading home. But as I turned onto the street, I saw a truck parked outside the gate, a moving truck. 3 men were unloading furniture, sofas, side tables, a huge ottoman wrapped in plastic. One man looked up and smiled. "Afternoon. We're here for Mrs. Harrington. She said to bring everything around back." I stepped out of the car. "You can stop right there." He blinked. "Sorry?" "This is my house," I said, firm. "No one told me anything about a delivery." She said the driveway would be cleared," he mumbled. "No, you'll leave everything at the curb, and do not step foot beyond the mailbox." They exchanged glances. Then the front door opened. Ron appeared, pretending to look surprised. "Oh, hey! I thought Isolde talked to you. We're just getting ready for her parents." "Getting ready," I repeated. "By shipping in furniture for people who don't live here." "It's just some rearranging," he said, trying to make the space more usable. "You don't prepare for guests by replacing the homeowner," I said calmly. He laughed, awkward. "No one's replacing anyone." I looked at the movers. "Unpack nothing else." And I walked past them, straight into the house. That night, I didn't wait. I drafted a full notice, terms of stay, behavioral expectations, limits on guests, and a deadline, printed 2 copies. The next morning, I placed them on the kitchen island next to their morning coffee. Isolde picked it up, read halfway through, then scoffed. "Wow, you're being really cold, Seraphine. This isn't you." "No," I replied, evenly. "That's the problem. This is me. You've just never listened long enough to know." Ron skimmed the page. "So, is this like a legal thing?" "No," I said. "It's a boundary. If it has to become legal, we'll cross that bridge." I turned and walked out into the backyard, not to retreat, but to breathe. Behind me, I heard Ron murmur, "This just got complicated." Later that day, I was deep cleaning the guest bathroom. The cabinet door stuck slightly on the pull. When I finally got it open, a sticky note fluttered to the floor. It was Isolde's handwriting. I knew it instantly. It read, "Repaint office, remove photos, transfer mailbox, final step, lawyer call, claim occupancy timeline." I stared at it. Not chaos, choreography. I quietly folded the note, walked to my bedroom, unlocked the file drawer, and slid it next to the saved recording. Then I whispered to myself, "Game on." I was sipping my coffee when the text came through. It was from Ellie, my next-door neighbor. Just a photo. No caption. I opened it, squinting at the screen, and nearly dropped my mug. A construction crew. On my back porch. Measuring. I didn't finish the coffee. I didn't grab a jacket. I drove home in my slippers, tires screeching around the bend like I was fleeing a fire. And maybe I was. As I pulled up, I saw them. 3 men in hard hats, one of them kneeling to draw a chalk outline against the siding. Isolde stood nearby, hands on hips, gesturing at blueprints I hadn't approved. I stormed out of the car. "What is going on here?" Isolde turned with a practiced smile. "You're early. We're expanding the patio. For better family flow. It'll boost the property value, promise." "Who gave you permission?" She blinked. "Well, I assumed that was your first mistake." One of the workers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're just following the instructions from Mrs. Harrington." "There's no Mrs. Harrington on this title," I snapped. "Stop everything, now!" Isolde's face tightened. "You weren't using that space. I thought it'd be a nice surprise." "Surprise is a ribbon around theft when you're pretending it's generosity," I said. I snapped photos of the chalk marks, the blueprints in her hands, the men packing up awkwardly as I dismissed them. Then I opened my email, attached the images, and sent them to my attorney with the subject line, "Unauthorized alteration attempt, urgent." The next morning, the smell of maple bacon drifted into my bedroom. Brunch. I dressed, not out of politeness, but strategy. I needed to see who showed up, who said what. I walked into my own backyard, now reset with tables, folding chairs, and pastel tablecloths. Ron's extended family filled the space like they belonged. His nieces played with chalk on the patio. His mother, silver hair styled just so, raised a mimosa. "To Isolde and her generosity," she announced, beaming, "turning this house into a home." I didn't flinch, I smiled. "She's certainly made herself at home." Isolde leaned in, smiling for the crowd. "Maybe if you tried harder to belong, you wouldn't feel so replaced." I looked her dead in the eye. "I'm not replaced, I'm being repurposed." She blinked. I walked inside. After brunch, while guests trickled out and leftover quiche hardened in the sun, I overheard Ron talking on the front porch. I paused in the hallway, out of sight. "Seraphine?" He laughed. "She's just the artsy aunt. She won't make noise, never has." A cousin replied, "It's not like she has a real family, no kids, no husband. She's transitional." I walked away without making a sound, but something cracked. That night, I sat on the floor of my storage room. My hands sifted through receipts, property tax payments, furniture invoices, renovation contracts, every utility bill in my name. I wasn't collecting proof. I was collecting fuel. This wasn't about defending space anymore. This was about ending a performance. The next morning, I woke early, deleted the shared family calendar, cut access to my Wi-Fi guest network, changed passwords on the smart TV, the thermostat, and removed their devices from my Prime account. I didn't make a scene. I made a statement. By breakfast, Isolde noticed. "Something wrong with the Wi-Fi?" she asked, holding her phone. "No, I just turned off the guest's access," I said. She blinked. "You're acting cold." I looked at her calmly. "No, I'm acting clear." She opened her mouth, but Ron walked in behind her, holding his laptop, confused. "Alexa won't play anything." "I bet she doesn't recognize your account anymore," I said, sipping my tea. Neither of them replied. That afternoon, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. It was the HOA representative. "Hi, Ms. Monroe. Quick question. We received a request to reassign your parking slot to another resident." I sat up. "Excuse me?" "Yes. Ronald Harrington submitted a form requesting to be listed as the primary occupant. Did you authorize that?" I took a breath. "No, I absolutely did not." "Got it. We'll flag it," she said. "Would you like to file a formal dispute?" "Yes, immediately." As I hung up, I stared at the sunlight streaming through the living room window. I could feel it now. This wasn't just about ownership. They were trying to erase me, not loudly, not legally, subtly, socially, emotionally. Ron Harrington. They were erasing me from the outside in. It was just after lunch when I got the tag. I was cleaning the espresso machine, trying to keep my hands busy while ignoring the silence that had settled over the house since our last cold exchange. The notification popped up on my phone screen. Someone had tagged me in a Facebook photo. Curious, I opened it. It was a group picture on my front porch. Isolde stood front and center, surrounded by Ron, his nieces, his sister, their dog, everyone smiling, glasses raised in a celebratory blur of sunshine and pastels. The caption read, "Home at last, Harrington Heaven." My name wasn't mentioned, I wasn't in the photo, but the comments, "So happy for your family, Isolde. Looks like such a cozy home. You deserve this. You have the best sister in the world, letting you build a new chapter there." I scrolled. Comment after comment. Congratulations, admiration, assumptions. Then I saw it, her story highlight. A series of photos showing the villa's hallway, the backyard brunch, even the chalkboard wall Isolde had labeled Harrington House Notes. And then, this. This villa's always been the dream. Now it's ours. I sat down at the kitchen island, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and fury. Not because she lied. I expected that. But because she made it public, and everyone believed her. I took screenshots of everything, then more, then again, just in case. I whispered to myself, they're not just living here. They're erasing me, post by post. I couldn't sit in the house anymore. I grabbed my bag, keys, and drove to downtown Bend. There was a cafe I liked near the river trail, low lighting, soft jazz, good almond croissants. I needed somewhere no one knew me as the free-spirited aunt. I was halfway through my drink when I heard someone say my name. Seraphine? I looked up. Lonnie. We hadn't seen each other in nearly a decade. We'd met in design school. She worked for a local architecture magazine now. Same calm eyes, tighter curls. I almost didn't recognize you, she said, sliding into the chair across from me without asking. I smiled politely. It's been a long time. She set down her coffee. So, congrats? On what? The villa, she said. I saw the posts. You sold it, right? My heart skipped. Sold? She pulled out her phone, browsed for a moment, then turned the screen toward me. A screenshot of a comment thread from Ron's brother's wife. So happy Seraphine let it go. That house deserves real energy. Below that, someone had written, we were lucky she let go of it so peacefully. Peacefully. That word punched harder than expected. I stared at the screen. No, I didn't sell anything. Lonnie raised an eyebrow. Oh, then you might want to check your narrative. They're rewriting it. I didn't finish my coffee. I thanked her, hugged her, and walked straight to my car. At home, I headed directly to the hallway closet and pulled out the black lockbox. My hand trembled as I placed it on the kitchen island and opened it. Inside, my blueprints, builder contracts, HOA approval letters, every document with my name, not Isolda's, not Ron's, mine. I laid them out one by one. This line, designated sole proprietor, Seraphine Monroe. This stamp, permit issued, June 14, 2019. This signature, mine. I looked at the evidence, not like it was paper, but armor. They'd told hundreds of strangers a lie. I didn't need to convince hundreds. I only needed 10. 10 people with the right access and the right timing. I spent the night scanning, organizing, backing up files into 3 separate drives, emailing summaries to my attorney with precise timestamps, each folder labeled by category, date, and legal relevance. There was no music playing, no TV murmuring in the background. Just the soft hum of the scanner and the quiet rage of someone building her case. The next morning, I logged into the HOA portal. A new note had appeared. This property is undergoing potential ownership reassignment. It wasn't official, not legally binding, but there it was, a placeholder, a planted seed. I stared at the screen, then my phone buzzed again. A DM. Hey, just saw your story. Didn't know you moved. Hope you're loving your new place. Jenna, from the firm. I didn't reply. Instead, I stood up, walked to the guest bedroom, opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand, and pulled out a red envelope. I had labeled it years ago, in case I'm ever pushed too far. I sat down on the edge of the bed. My fingers hovered over the flap. Then I opened it. It started with a file name, a small, inconspicuous attachment buried in the HOA portal, something I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been combing through documents late at night looking for discrepancies. I clicked. The metadata told me everything. The email address listed under secondary property contact wasn't mine. It belonged to Ron, his business account no less. And under that was a scanned form marked Occupancy Adjustment Inquiry, complete with a flag for co-residence reassignment pending. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling through my nose. They weren't just stepping over a line anymore. They were drafting new ones with my name erased and theirs scribbled in. I took screenshots, every page, every form. I emailed them to my attorney with the subject, Fraud Attempt, Urgent. Then I logged the time, the IP address, and backed up the files on a hard drive. My hands were steady, but my blood was boiling. They hadn't tried to steal the house with lawyers. Yet they were trying to steal it through suggestion, one soft edit at a time. The next day, I didn't confront them. I didn't need to, because they'd planned another brunch. This one had a printed invitation left on the fridge, though of course I hadn't been verbally invited. Just another gathering in my backyard, this time labeled Welcome Party for the Harrington Parents. I watched from the French doors as folding chairs were set up and fresh roses arranged in vases that used to sit on my mantel. Guests arrived with wine bottles and baby gifts. Someone brought a Bluetooth speaker that played yacht rock on loop. I stood quietly, taking mental notes, counting heads, watching who took selfies where. Then I heard it. A woman's voice, loud and cheerful. So this house is yours now? Isolde laughed. It's practically a done deal. That was it. I walked out into the backyard, heels clicking against the slate tiles, silence following in my wake. Actually, I said, loud enough to stop conversation, not only is that false, it's slander. All eyes turned. Ron stood quickly, napkin in hand. Sarah, maybe we can— No, I said, pulling out a printed folder from under my arm. This is my home, and what you've done isn't just unethical, it's illegal. I opened the folder and laid the document on the table in front of Ron's mother. Here's your son's fake reassignment request, and here's the scanned copy with metadata showing when he submitted it from his business account under my address. Isolda's face drained of color. Ron stepped forward. You're blowing this out of proportion. I don't think identity fraud is ever a proportion issue, I replied. Nobody laughed. A few guests started gathering their things. Isolda hissed under her breath. You just embarrassed everyone for nothing. I looked at her, deadpan. No, I exposed everything. The nothing is how you'll explain this to the people who were watching. The guests trickled out. Quietly. No hugs. No goodbyes. That night, I received an alert from my bank. A hard inquiry had been run using my property address, but not my name. I called the fraud department immediately. I played dumb. I think it might be a mistake, I said. I didn't apply for anything. The representative confirmed the inquiry originated from someone claiming to live at my address. They hadn't stopped. They were trying to secure loans against what they didn't own. That was it. The line was drawn, and I wasn't going to wait for anyone else to cross it again. The next morning, I met my attorney at her office. We sat in a small conference room, surrounded by coffee cups and legal pads. I handed her everything, copies of the forged documents, HOA messages, screenshots from the bank, even the brunch photos where Isolda stood center stage like queen of someone else's castle. I want to file a cease and desist, I said, and I want them gone. She nodded. You'll need to give them formal notice, 72 hours. I'll draft it by noon. I exhaled. Name the file Monroe v. Harrington, I said, and make sure the subject line reads, property defense. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. When I got home, I walked past Isolda in the kitchen. She was stirring tea, humming. She looked up. Everything okay? Never better, I replied, walking upstairs. That night, before bed, I sent one text to my mother. Please don't call to mediate this. The boundary was broken long ago. I powered off my phone, closed my laptop, and whispered into the quiet. Let's see how welcome they feel now. The villa had gone quiet. No brunch playlist. No squeaky laughter bouncing off my hardwood floors. No clatter from rearranged furniture or Isolda's nasal hum to whatever lo-fi playlist she'd been streaming on loop. Since the cease and desist letter had been served, the house had shifted, and not in design. Energy. A thick, tense silence had filled every room. The kind of silence that didn't feel like peace. It felt like fallout. Isolde still floated through the kitchen pretending nothing had changed, but her smile had an edge now, as if it had to hold something in. Ron barely looked at me, his shoes squeaking on tile as he tiptoed around my presence. Every time he passed, he muttered something under his breath. You didn't have to go nuclear, he said one morning as I was watering my plants. I glanced at him. That wasn't nuclear. That was a fire drill. His mouth twisted, but he said nothing. I walked away. Later that day, I was dusting the hallway gallery when something stopped me cold. An outline, a soft square of dust, lighter than the rest of the wall. Then another, and another. Half of my photos were missing. Not crooked, not fallen. Removed. I scanned the floor. Nothing broken. I checked the hallway console. No frames. Then it hit me. I opened the storage closet. Behind two bins labeled Ron, Tools, and Guest Linens, I found them. My university diploma, my award for design innovation, a photo of Grandma Zinnia handing me the first check to start this house, all perfectly intact, all deliberately hidden. At lunch, I said nothing. I waited until Isolda finished her sandwich. Did the cleaning crew move anything recently? She looked up too quickly. Why? Because my hallway's been edited, she shrugged. Maybe they thought it looked cluttered. I didn't hire them. She hesitated. Well, maybe Ron did. Or maybe someone thought it looked dated. I mean, the space is more open now. Mistakes don't leave clean corners, I said. She didn't answer. That evening, I rehung every photo. Me in my cap. Me sketching the villa blueprint at age 28. Grandma's wrinkled hand in mine, on the same porch where Isolde hosted fake ownership brunches. They can rearrange this house, I whispered, but not my story. I walked into my study, sat at my desk, turned on the camera feed from the backup device hidden behind the living room art sculpture, an old wooden compass I'd embedded a camera into back when I first moved in, frame after frame. The dates aligned with everything, the day I was out for a client meeting, the brunch prep, even the week before the welcome party. There they were, Ron, Isolde, 3 strangers. They walked through the house, touched my kitchen cabinets, joked about which wall could be knocked down. Just imagine a big open floor plan, one said. She's barely here, Isolde answered. This place needs a real family's energy. I paused the video, stared at her frozen face, then hit play again. She won't mind, Ron chimed in. She's the quiet type. The next clip showed Isolde pointing at the patio doors. And out here, we could host weekly dinners, once the papers go through. I saved the file, emailed it to my lawyer, CC'd the HOA rep with a note. Additional footage for ongoing investigation. Monroe v. Pinos, Harrington. That night, the phone rang. My mother. I let it ring 3 times before answering. I just got off the phone with Isolde, she started. She's upset. Because she got caught. She says you're making her look like a criminal. She forged documents, removed photos of her landlord, and hosted tenants without permission. A pause. She says you locked her out of the Wi-Fi. I nearly laughed. I locked her out of my life. Sweetheart, can't we just... No, Mom, please don't sweetheart me right now. A pause again. Then, softly, she said, I didn't know it was this deep. No, I said. You didn't want to. I hung up before she could soften her guilt into a moral middle ground. The following morning, an email from my lawyer popped up. Subject, property defense, update, body, clear footage, clean legal line. We can initiate full removal by end of month. Will proceed unless otherwise instructed. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I walked into the hallway, picked up the printed still from the video, Isolde in mid-sentence, gesturing toward a house that wasn't hers. I framed it, hung it in the exact spot where she had removed Grandma Zinnia's picture. Now they'd remember who built this house. It was raining the night I opened the garage, not the kind of rain that cleanses, but the sort that drips with warning, steady and intentional. I was looking for the box of original loan documents. I remembered placing it on the second shelf, top left, stacked under labeled manila envelopes. It wasn't there. I scanned the space, saw a tarp slightly lifted behind the water heater. Beneath it, the missing box, damp but intact. On top, a smaller container I didn't recognize. I pulled it forward and opened it. Inside, my childhood photos, my music box, and a birthday card. Handmade, folded unevenly, with the words, "For my brave girl, this house will always be your foundation." Grandma Zinnia's handwriting. My breath caught. This wasn't just storage. This was a burial of my identity, my memory, the very history that tied me to this land. They didn't just invade my space. They tried to erase who I was before they arrived. I wiped the box down, cradled the music box like it might shatter, carried it to my nightstand, placed it gently beside my reading lamp. It belonged there. Erasing someone's presence doesn't delete their ownership, I whispered. It only delays the proof. Upstairs, in my office, I remembered the red envelope tucked beneath the file tray. It had sat there for years, marked, "Do not open unless you need to remember why." I opened it. A letter. Cream-colored paper. Ink slightly faded. Zinnia's handwriting, again. Seraphine, I built this for you because I watched you build for others your whole life. I know the way your eyes soften when you draw, and the way your jaw sets when you're told to settle. This home is yours because you earned it, because you'll protect it. The letter continued, unraveling not just her gift, but her warning. Those who come with charm and chaos should never hold your keys. They will repaint walls, but never rebuild roots. I exhaled hard. The final line hit like thunder. Keep your home, keep your soul, the rest is furniture. I folded the letter, slid it into my planner. My spine straightened without effort. I logged into the HOA portal. New entries under resident feedback, noise complaints, guest parking violations. One neighbor even attached a video of Ron slamming the trash bin outside, yelling about papers, and how this is getting ridiculous. Isolde, on the other hand, posted a filtered photo of herself on Instagram that night, holding a glass of rosé, captioned, "Some people fear change, but we embrace roots." Roots? I attached the video to my case log, along with a timeline of when their guest status expired and every policy they'd violated since. My lawyer replied within 10 minutes, "This will expedite the process. We may not need full litigation." By midnight, I was packing. Not to leave, but to secure documents from a different era, the kind stored in locked drawers of childhood. I drove to my parents' home, rain still spitting down on the windshield. The driveway looked exactly the same, lights warm inside, curtains drawn. My mother opened the door. No questions, no hugs, just a quiet nod. "You're here for the files." I nodded. "They're still in my room?" "Exactly where you left them." She didn't say sorry. She didn't need to. Her silence was its own apology. Upstairs, my bedroom waited like it had held its breath for 10 years. Faded posters, a worn desk, the quilt she stitched by hand. I sat cross-legged on the floor, opened the safe, and pulled out the manila folder marked Zinnia Trust. "Tea?" my mother called softly. "Yes," I said. "Please." She brought it in quietly, placed it beside me, and sat on the edge of the bed. No lectures, just presence. I looked around the room. It hadn't changed, because no one had tried to conquer it. "This," I said, "is the kind of house that heals you when another one tries to break you." I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I felt clarity. As I reached to zip the folder shut, my phone buzzed. New email from the HOA. Subject, mediation request, formal meeting. From Isolde Harrington, CC Seraphine Monroe. I read it twice, then whispered to myself, "She wants to negotiate now. Now." The HOA building smelled like printer ink and lemon-scented air freshener. Neutral walls, safe chairs, the kind of place built to prevent shouting, even when shouting was deserved. I wore gray slacks and a navy blouse, my hair tied neatly, no jewelry, no perfume, nothing that could be misread as performative. I didn't need drama, I needed closure. Isolde and Ron arrived 5 minutes late, dressed like they were attending a country club brunch. She had on a cream blazer, gold earrings, and her community engagement smile. Ron clutched a folder, thick with what I assumed were testimonials from neighbors they'd manipulated or misled. The HOA rep cleared her throat. "We're here to discuss the concerns raised regarding unauthorized occupancy, noise violations, and the question of legal representation of residency." I looked at them both and said calmly, "I didn't come to argue. I came to close." I opened my folder, laid it flat, and pushed the documents forward. A certified ownership record, time-stamped footage stills, 3 notarized letters from neighbors confirming the escalation, and a printed screenshot of the fabricated occupancy reassignment email Ron had submitted. Ron opened his mouth. I raised a hand gently without turning my head toward him. He stayed quiet. Isolde fidgeted in her chair, eyes darting across the table. Her fake smile frayed at the edges. When the rep nodded and began reviewing the packet, I leaned back. Let the evidence speak. 10 minutes passed with only the shuffle of paper. Then Isolde broke the silence. "I didn't think you'd take it this far," she said softly, voice just shy of remorse. "You didn't think I'd defend what was mine," I answered. She blinked. "Ron's parents are older. We didn't want to drag them around to more properties. We just thought, you thought I wouldn't push back." "Because I never did before." She reached across the table with her words, not her hands. Can we at least stay until we find a new place? 7 days, I said. No guests, no brunches, no Instagram posts, no furniture moves, no false narratives. 7 days. Ron's jaw clenched. Do we even get a say in this? He muttered. You had your say, I replied. You just didn't use it to ask. The HOA rep cleared her throat again. The property's ownership is unambiguous. If Miss Monroe is granting a grace period, that is a courtesy, not an obligation. I stood. We're done here. I left them in the room and walked out into the sun. It was over. Not for them, but for me. The next few days felt like shedding an old skin. I watched them move in reverse, boxes now lining the hallway, voices reduced to whispers, eyes avoiding mine. The kitchen was quiet, the music gone, even the dog they used to watch for a friend had vanished. I didn't gloat. I just reclaimed. I replaced my artwork in the dining room, changed the locks, reconnected the guest network, renamed it Not Your Villa, reset the thermostat schedule, reprogrammed the doorbell camera. I spoke little. I didn't need to. One morning, I found a folded note in the mailbox. It read, Glad the right person owns that home. No signature, just understanding. On the final morning, I watched from the studio window as they loaded the last of their things into a borrowed van. Ron moved faster than usual. Isolde didn't wear her usual pearls. No heels. Just flat shoes and a sweatshirt she hadn't worn in public since college. She stood at the bottom of the driveway for a moment, looked up at the house, at my window. Our eyes met. She looked down and got into the passenger seat. They drove away without a word. That night, my phone buzzed, a text from my mother. I know you didn't do this out of spite. I'm proud you stood your ground. I didn't reply. I walked through the house, barefoot. The silence felt different now, not hollow, whole. I paused at the hallway, touched the edge of the framed photo I'd hung above the spot Isolde had once left empty. It was a still from the security footage, her gesturing with a lie on her lips. My reminder. I sat at my desk and opened my journal, wrote in clean, dark ink. They thought this was the end, but it was only the closing of their chapter. 10 days. That's how long it had been since the van pulled out of my driveway, since Ron slammed the door with a grunt and Isolde climbed in without glancing back. Since silence returned to my home, the villa, for the first time in months, breathed again. The air no longer carried perfume I didn't wear. The couch cushions didn't slump under someone else's routine. The hallway didn't echo with conversation I wasn't part of. I walked room to room, no music playing, just the sound of my own footsteps, grounding me in the space that was always mine. I saged the corners, repainted the entryway, rolled up every rug they ever commented on. I didn't just want space, I wanted peace. And that takes silence. While sorting through a week's worth of mail, I found an envelope without a return address. Inside was a photo. Ron, standing next to the van, yelling something off camera. Isolde, half-turned, face covered by her hand. Someone had snapped it from a distance. On the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, Karma loads faster than U-Haul. I smiled. 3 weeks earlier, I had stood in the county registrar's office holding a manila envelope Zinnia had handed me a year before her death. At the time, I hadn't understood why she wanted to amend the deed. Just a formality, she said, for your future. That formality included a clause. No secondary title transfer could be processed without my biometric approval, fingerprint, signature, physical presence. It had felt excessive back then. Now, divine. That clause not only invalidated Ron's fraudulent attempts, it flagged the address permanently. No co-ownership claims, no shared use loopholes, no third-party access to title or tax modifications. They never had the key, because they never had the right. It wasn't just a house, it was a locked legacy. And I was the lock. Days passed. The HOA closed the case. My lawyer emailed the final judgment. Clean, sealed, archived. I thought they'd go quietly, But Isolde, always clinging to narratives, tried one more act. She posted a story. A photo of the villa porch, my porch, captioned, "Pushed out by control, but roots run deep." She tagged 3 local groups. Some of her online followers reposted. I didn't flinch. Instead, I posted one image, a screenshot of the official court order, my name on every page, the timeline, the cease and desist, the HOA confirmation, no caption, no hashtags. Let facts speak where feelings failed. The post traveled fast, not viral, but visible enough. Comments poured in. A masterclass in how to protect what's yours. No drama, just power. She let them write the script, then took the pen and ended the story herself. By the next day, Isolde's story was gone, her account quiet, her followers thinned. Ron was spotted working night shifts at a local dealership, their spotlight dimmed, faded, unacknowledged. I didn't watch them fall. I let them drift out of focus. That evening, I lit candles in the dining room and cooked for one. Roasted garlic, lemon chicken, warm bread. Justice doesn't taste like victory. It tastes like dinner without interruption. After the meal, I poured wine, played the playlist I used to sketch to, instrumentals and soft jazz. I stood by the window and let myself exhale. No noise, no guests, no pretense. Later, I walked into the study, opened the drawer and pulled out the red envelope I'd kept sealed for years. I didn't need it anymore, but I framed it anyway, a reminder. As I set it on the shelf, my phone lit up. A message from my mother. I wish I'd believed you earlier, but I'm grateful you didn't wait for that. I read it twice, then picked up my journal and wrote, "Let them remember me not as the girl they tried to erase, but the woman who wrote the ending." And just like that, I shut the door. Not on them, but on ever needing to explain again why I deserved to keep what was mine.